Never use a literal word.
These guys need to be able to ferret around in there.
I'd say it's...
Extracted.
Yeah.
Extracted. Talking about charming atmospheric peasants is sort of the wine writer's stock and trade. You want to go to college, you get it off the table, and you start kicking out. Lift off.
Hi, I'm Philippe Newland with Devour TV, and today we have the pleasure of being at the very snobby Del Posto with two people who can tell us exactly what that means. We have David Camp of Vanity Fair.
Hello.
Hello, David.
A snobby day to you.
Nice to see you, my dear. David Camp, writer at Vanity Fair magazine, GQ, author of The United States of Arugula, and the author of a new book, The Wine Snob's Dictionary, with a good old friend of mine. Good to see you, David.
Sir.
Another David.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. From David, James Beard Award winner, forgot his ascot today, was for some time, well, shall we say, associated with the Bastianich Batali dynasty, and a co-author of the book. Gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Camp, to set the scene, you have been you've been reveling in the details of snobbery for some time now.
Yes, this is actually the fourth in a series. There was a rock snob book, a film snob one, a food snob one, and now a wine snob one.
A wine snob one. And it took you 3 books to get to wine snobbery, which I would have thought may have been the very first book.
Well, it's interesting because, in every realm of cultural experience, whether it is rock music or film appreciation or food appreciation, there is this group of people who have this proprietary grip on info that only they can know, or so they can lord it over you and explain it to you and outsmart you and make you feel very bad.
I feel small already.
And with rock snobs and food snobs and film snobs, we kind of have a tendency to call them out on it and say, like, you're ridiculous. I mean, why do you care so much? But wine snobbery is different because we actually respect that person when it comes to wine. It's kind of the default state of the wine enthusiast is the wine snob.
I have used my wine snobbery as a way to compensate for a lot of things in my life. Like, I'm not a tall man, for example. So, as such, and a lot of sommeliers share this particular trait
I've
of
noticed that. What is that?
non-tallness.
So they can be sort of not too
and so
intimidating.
sort of standing upon this sort of milk crate of knowledge, if you will, has helped to sort of elevate my stature in the snob community and in the community at large.
Right.
And so and you see I'm constantly holding the tools of the trade here. I have my corkscrew ready for us should we decide to crack open a bottle of juice. Our methodology for putting it together was we got together and we said, and David basically said, okay, look, we need to put together a grand list, not all of which will end up in the book, but think of all the terminology you use on a daily basis in your life as a sommelier, but then go even further. I took the Oxford Companion to Wine and literally went page to page and went from A to Z of the Oxford Companion to Wine to sort of come up with terms, with people. It's some of it's slang, some of it's personalities, some of it is technical terminology that, one of the things about these books that's a byproduct of all the satire is that there's actual information in there. And so I found it to be an interesting... It was an interesting writing exercise.
It's not totally a useless trifle to read on the toilet, is what David is trying to say. It's actually informational, yes.
But it is good to read on the toilet.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Philippe Newland with Devour TV's Top 50 Dishes, and today we're in Soho at Ed's Lobster Bar, where supposedly the fried clams are even better than the lobster roll. Let's go meet with Chef Ed McFarland and find out if this is in fact true. Come on.
Hi, my name is Ed McFarland. We're here at my restaurant, Ed's Lobster Bar. I prepared wonderful fried clams for Philippe, and if he doesn't like them, I'm going to have one of my lobsters bite his nipple.
Oh, there we go. The fried Ipswich clam dish.
Ipswich clams.
Ipswich, what's the story with Ipswich? That's up in Mass?
It's up in Mass, and you're going to get the best steamer clams, especially for frying from there.
Oh.
There's a lot more going on here than my usual clam strip dish down at down at Red Lobster.
Well, this is the real deal. If you're going to do the dish, you got to do it right. So
yeah.
You definitely want to have whole clams. You know, just to do a strip or a belly, you're not giving the customer what they deserve.
Tell me a little bit about how you fry them.
Okay, so the first thing I do with the clams is I rinse them in cold water. They can get all the excess shell off of them because there's some shell pieces in them.
Okay.
And then I bring them over to the dredge. Okay, the dredge is a mixture of all-purpose flour and white cornmeal.
Okay.
But very fine. I lay the clams out in the dredge, and then I take a motion like this with them until they really get caked and they look very cut up, even though the clam is whole. And that's how you get that texture on the clam like that.
That is just beautiful. I mean, look at this. It's sort of like this rippling, a riptide of clam goodness. And over here, next to the pile of clams,
a traditional tartar sauce, very traditional accompaniment to the fried clams.
For our viewers, tartar sauce,
mayonnaise, cornichon caper, red onion, lemon juice, and a little pepper.
All right, I'm gonna grab this puppy right here, please. Let me put a little more lemon there, and then just dip it right in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Forget the fork in there. Forget the fork and knife.
You don't need the fork and knife.
Here we go, the belly. Come on.
So I'm gonna get myself a nice clam. You know, the key is in frying them lightly, not making them too over crisp and overcooking the clam.
Yeah. It's almost like a Japanese batter in that lightness. Digging into the belly, I just tasted the sea. I mean, yeah, the salt of the sea is right there.
You're gonna taste all the clam. You know, we fry them just really light and golden, and as soon as they're crisp to the touch, they come right out of the fryer. So I pick them up, I give a little poke on them. If they feel crisp, light golden brown, they come right out and go right out to the customer nice and hot. And we fry in peanut oil. And gives it a little more flavor.
Okay.
Very good heating temperature.
This is just so awesome. Finger food at its finest. It's interesting, here down at Ed's Lobster Bar, the clam is what our surveys came up with as one of the top 50 dishes in New York City.
I think there's a lot of people out there who love fried clams just as much as lobster, and you know, they found a place that does them the right way.
Okay, so here at Ed's Lobster Bar down in Soho, the fried clam in this tempura-like batter, beautiful tartar sauce. I've never had a bivalve mollusk as good as this one, man. This is just awesome. You want to dive in for
let's finish
a few more? Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Top 50 dishes, New York City, the fried clam at Ed's. Thanks, man. It's good, man. I'll be back.
How to braise. Carrots, celery, onion, peppercorns, oil, salt, short ribs, red wine, thyme and bay leaf, veal stock. The first step in braising is actually searing it. Turn your heat on high, then season all sides of your meat. Browning the meat is where you get all of your flavor. The more brown, the more flavor. Now it also adds the flavor if you roast your mirepoix, the carrot, onion, and celery. This sweetens the vegetables, and the moisture also deglazes the bottom of the pot. That brown meat left a lot of flavor on the bottom of that pot, and you want to make sure you don't leave it there. Once your mirepoix started to color, hit it with the red wine. The vegetables also leave some flavor on the bottom of the pot, called fons, and the wine will pull this off the pot and in the braise. At this point, you can add ribs back into the pot. Add just enough stock to cover the meat 1/3 to halfway up the short ribs. They shouldn't be covered all the way. Add the bay leaf, the thyme, and the peppercorns. Once the braise starts to come up, start skimming all the weird looking stuff off the top. Once it's at a nice simmer, cover and throw it in a 325-degree oven. After 3 to 5 hours, there's a wide window of possibilities here, they should be done. The meat should be totally fork tender, easily falling apart. Make sure not to overcook though. It's easier to dry out a piece of meat by cooking it in liquid than you'd think. If you let it braise too long, all the moisture will get pulled out of the rib and into the braising liquid. Start checking your braise every 30 minutes after the first 3 hours have gone by, and you'll end up with a perfect, tender, juicy braise.
So,
Go ahead.
Gary Vaynerchuk from, where's the name of that place in New Jersey?
Springfield.
Springfield. Wine Library, formerly known as?
Shoppers Discount Liquors.
Awesome. Your family opened the shop when?
83.
And they are from Eastern Europe, Russia?
Yeah, Belarus. I was born in Belarus.
And came here when you were 3?
Yes.
Rock on.
Impressive.
I tried to be.
That's
So
pretty
your mom
impressive.
and dad opened the shop, and it was what upon the first day?
You know, it was a liquor store, lots of liquor and beer, lots of beer. Beer was 50% of the store. And because we were in that Short Hill, Springfield area, there was some wine demand. And so Shoppers Discount Liquors, around 14, 15, I got involved. And, you know, I wasn't
Even though you're below age?
Even though I'm below age. I wasn't drinking. I just had no interest in beer and liquor. I was not the normal teenager. That didn't like get me excited. I didn't want to drink it, and it wasn't that cool to me. And the only thing that kind of sparked my interest was wine, because I was collecting baseball cards and making a lot of money doing that at the time. I had my little baseball card business. And when people came in asking for, the moment is very clear in my mind, it was the 90 Caymus Special Select, because that year, you know, Spectator named it Wine of the Year, and like 30, 40 people came in on a Saturday asking for it.
By the way, how much were you able to get after it was named the #1 wine?
Here's the best part. My dad bought Caymus Special Select as a closeout. You know, the culture was very different. I mean, in 1993, 94, people weren't running and screaming and, you know, throwing uppercuts like Cabbage Patch Kids to get these wines. You know, they were totally focused on drinking some French wines and different things. And, you know, we had a very interesting wine program. I remember when I really started learning, went to the Burgundy section and saw nothing but Chateauneuf de Popes. And I was like, you know what, I can bring something here. And what I realized very quickly was within a year, 17 years old, being a junior in high school, and going to the store and talking to the wine people that would come through my dad's shop, realizing I was hungry for knowledge, and I was like, hey, do you have any Chinon? You know, we need Chinon. And they would be like, what? And I would be like, wait a minute, where is America in its knowledge base, right? And I quickly realized, you know, I remember when I brought up Quincé, and not a single person of like the 15 people that were presenting that day knew what I was talking about. And I said to myself, okay, wait a minute, there's an opportunity here. I can wreck shop in this, right? I mean, I got time, you know, and I'm gonna learn this, and, you know, eventually, hopefully, I'll like it. I mean, there was a big fear, especially when I was like 20 and a half, when I was really invested. I was really scared I wasn't gonna like wine. I mean, and that first year was difficult for me, 21 to 22. I'm not drinking wine at this point.
You were buying all of these cool appellation wines based on your reading?
Totally based on reading.
So how did you know the quality of what you were buying was in play?
I relied on the critics. There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm gonna apologize directly this way, there's people that I probably told Chateauneuf de Popes was 100% Pinot Noir. I mean, I was 15, I was like so excited, I was just wanted to get, even then, wanted to get people, I remember I was obsessed with getting people not to drink Kendall Jackson Chardonnay. Because
what do you have against KJ?
I had nothing against KJ besides the fact that every human being that walked through my dad's store wanted a case of it.
But it was easy to sell. It was a good, your mom and dad must have loved that because they knew.
Hell yeah, they loved it. We had 40 trillion stacks. As a matter of fact, my dad had a huge stack of Sebastiani Chardonnay 1.5s in front of the store that after I finally beat him down to move it, the boxes were indentated into the tile. I mean, it was there that long. And so, you know, at a very young age.
Do you have a monument to that wine now?
We actually, I do have a bottle of it. And I have a bottle of Kenwood Chardonnay because that was my go-to for the Kendall Jackson people. And of course, you know, I'm 17, I look like I'm 9, people are coming in, I want a case of KJ, and I'd be like, no, you don't. You know, you need Kenwood. You know, it was just like, there was a lot of passion. And, you know, when I started Wine Library TV in early 2006, it really just became this new formation of what I did in 1993 and 94.
You know, I often think that I have to be like the world's Riesling disciple. There are a lot of people out there who already know it. You love Riesling?
I do.
You have any thoughts about German Riesling?
I'm a fan.
Riesling is really one of the great wine grapes of the world.
That's much closer to French and Italian sort of white.
They normally like to drink whites from the Loire and whites from Bordeaux. And they're not so used to drinking Riesling.
C'est très beau. C'est délicieux.
It's excellent, delicious.
When you go back to the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, something like 1/3 of the entire year were considered fast days. Now, what a fast day meant was you just couldn't eat meat. Because of this, they ate lots and lots of fish, whatever the fish happened to be that was local typically. So this particular recipe is from Catalonia, from Barcelona, and there they would have sardines. Now, they wouldn't have these miserable little sardines that we get imported. They would have had nice, big, fat sardines, because this was in the days before the Mediterranean was completely fished out. But we will do what we gotta do with these little ones, and what we gotta do is we gotta gut the things, because each little sardine has some guts in it, and you gotta cut that little baby open it up, and get rid of all those guts. Once you've done all this, of course, you want to take it over to water and wash them really, really well. So we have our washed up sardines all arranged in a nice little casserole. At this point, of course, you would be having your nice fireplace all ready to go with glowing embers, because these should be cooked in the glowing embers of a fireplace. We, of course, are going to use an oven because our glowing embers are not exactly where we would like them to be. So you need to season this. In the 15th century, the seasoning is typically ginger. Almost everything has ginger on it, and ginger is relatively cheap in these days. And then some pepper. Again, abundant quantities of pepper, because pepper is relatively inexpensive as well compared to other sort of spices like saffron, which costs an arm and a leg. And here you want to take the saffron and grind it up very, very, very finely. Sprinkle it on top. It also tells you to put on there some pine nuts. In many ways, this is not that much different from what you would find today in Catalonia. It's very sort of Spanish tasting, except for the ginger, of course. Spanish don't use ginger today to speak of. But the almonds that go in there would be very Spanish, as with the raisins, the sweet and savory thing that goes on in the Middle Ages still has some echoes in contemporary Spanish cuisine. And some good herbs. You're supposed to put in some good herbs. In this case, I think what they mean are some mint and some parsley. How much? Again, it's completely up to you, but I figure maybe about a tablespoon of parsley, maybe a little less mint. We've got enough olive oil so it's swimming in it. Our sardines are swimming in olive oil and spices and herbs. Salt goes on top because you need to balance the sweetness with the salt. Some nice sea salt. And into the oven it goes. I'm guessing that 450 will be about as good as putting it on top of glowing embers, but your guess is probably as good as mine. Looking pretty good. Need to see is if the meat is cooked, and it's looking pretty good. So let's see what our 21st century's tasters think of this one. So are you ready for the sardinas en cazuela?
Ready.
Here goes.
Do I touch the head?
Oh, you must touch the head. Absolutely, that's the best part.
I think it's still breathing.
It's a fish. It's good. Well, and I suspect you need some of this.
I ate about half my sardine, and it wasn't bad.
I would just guess that today's food is probably a lot better than food from 400 years ago, so I didn't think this was going to be very good, but it came out way better.
So the first restaurant that I worked at in Vermont, one of my best friends from culinary school was there with me. He loved to play jokes on the waitstaff. He'd take cold duck fat and scoop it out with an ice cream scoop and serve it to him and tell him it was coconut sorbet. And there was one day when one of the servers said they never had bonito before, so John took a bunch of our pencil shaving wood chips for smoking the salmon, put it on a spoon and handed it to them. The guy ate a whole spoonful of wood chips, and everybody started to really dislike him for it. So after we're there for a couple weeks, we're running this one plate. There's horseradish potato puree on it. And so every day I've got to grate up a bunch of fresh horseradish, steep it in cream. I took the horseradish, grated it into a 6-pan. I was looking at it and I was like, this looks just like cheddar cheese. So I went, hey man, this cheese, it is definitely not bad, but there's a weird smell going on in it and I cannot figure out what it is for the life of me. So I called him over, picked up the 6 pan, and just goes. And I could see his whole like face freeze and his sinuses like explode inside his head. He let out the loudest blood-curdling scream I've ever heard, and probably didn't speak to me for at least a week or 2 after that. It was just like nothing. And I don't know, it's probably the meanest thing I've ever done to anyone in the kitchen, ever.
How to steam mussels. Mussels, white wine, salt, pepper, butter. First thing, you have to make sure that you've picked out all the dead mussels. If you have one that has a cracked shell or it's open and won't close itself, toss it. Also, don't be afraid to use your nose. If you pick one up and it stinks, lose it. If one feels half the way to the others, it's probably dead. This is also the time when you can pull the beards off the mussels. Some chefs say it's better to leave them on and remove them after they've been cooked. This keeps them more tender. If you're using fresh mussels though, it shouldn't make a noticeable difference. Turn your heat on and add a little butter. Add your live mussels and season. Now add your wine and cover. This should only take 2 to 3 minutes. Once a mussel opens up, pull it out of the pan to keep it from getting rubbery. Once they've all opened up, you can melt more butter into the steaming liquid, pour it all over the mussels, and enjoy.
This is Vernon. He's my new puppy. We do lots of stuff together. Watch movies. Not best in show again. Play games. Now you know that is not how you spell neuter. Lots of stuff. When it comes to dinner time though, we usually go to our separate spots. Not anymore. I'm making recipes that you and your pet can share together. This is Pet Chef. So today we are going to be making a salmon mutt loaf in honor of Vernon, and he's been smelling the salmon and very excited about it. So we take 2 cans of smoked salmon, and to that we're going to add a low-fat organic cream cheese. We're just going to dump all 8 ounces of the cream cheese right in there, and it also helps if it's a little bit softened. And then to that we're just going to get right in there and mix that salmon into that cream cheese. And Vernon can smell it. He's very excited about the salmon mutt loaf, even though he may be a little offended about the term of mutt. So once we have the cream cheese mixed well into all of the salmon, we're going to form it into a ball. Wait till it's ready. We have some sliced almonds, non-salted sliced almonds, and some parsley. And we're just going to put it right on the almonds and press down and roll it over and do the same. And keep doing that until all the sides are coated with the non-salted almonds. And then from here, we're going to put this in the freezer for about an hour, let it get hard, and serve about an 1/8 inch slice to Vernon and to myself, because this is one of my favorite dishes as well. And this one, Mr. Vernon can hardly wait for. This is the salmon mutt loaf. It's out of the freezer, ready to be served, just small slices at a time. Even though we are using a low-fat cream cheese, you just want a little bit at a time, and that's for you, buddy. Enjoy. You eat that while I cut myself a slice. It would be more polite to wait for me, but that's okay. That is good. I like this one too.
What does it mean when we say body of a wine? What we're talking about is the mouthfeel, the texture, the thickness of the wine on the palate or in the mouth. And the best way to explain that is through dairy products. Skim milk, whole milk, and heavy cream. Skim milk is pretty much a light-bodied beverage. And in the middle you have whole milk, which is thicker than skim, obviously, and then there's heavy cream. Heavy cream, thicker than whole milk, thicker than skim milk. So when we talk about the body of a wine and we want to experience it on our own, when we have the wine in our mouth, think about the mouth feel, or the texture, or the weight of the wine in your mouth. Hope you learned something today. Remember, a passion without pretension.